Good morning, everyone. It's Ron. Uh, Sunday, the 26th of January. We'll get started today and see if we have any questions. Well, if no one has a question, I guess I have a question. Uh, we were talking yesterday and we talked about where we are. We're being sincere about what's going on. Where we're all this year, some of the things we're seeing. We talked about fear. We talked about our anxieties. And Kathy was the first to bring it up. She mentioned love. Love covers a multitude of entanglements. And I just want to talk about that a little bit more if we could. I know what love looks like in my life with the people that I am surrounded by, family and friends, and which definitely includes you guys and the intimacy that we have on this phone. But the love for all of mankind, especially what we're seeing now. When she says love covers a multitude of sin, of entanglements rather, what does that mean for us? What would that even look like?
Ask your
Mm.
question again.
Well, we talked yesterday. We ended the day by talking about love. Kathy mentioned love, uh, and covers a multitude of entanglements, covers a multitude of sin, however you want to say it. So what does that love look like? What do we how do we see that? What do we do here? Is it the same as when we talk about family and friends because the family and friend things is based really you can't uh, talk about that without including feelings and emotions. So love does not have to include feelings and emotions, though, correct?
I think they do have to include emotions.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because affection is rooted in emotions.
Right.
Anger is rooted
Complete.
in emotion.
That's why the enemy doesn't just attack.
Uh, okay. Uh, it covers emotion. I mean, it includes emotions. And the reason I say that is because you don't feel you don't you when you love something is your expressions are different. When you love your quote unquote enemy, that means that you have a different emotional expression towards them than you would have if you hated them. So I do think it includes emotions. However, I do believe also that the love of which Kathy was speaking, that covers a multitude of entanglements, I believe it is more inclusive as well as it presents a broader covering, meaning that is different than the expression of love towards your mama or love towards your mate or love towards a sibling. It's different. And the
Yeah.
difference in it is in how you express it because you don't express the love that you have um, for your partner that you don't express that same love to a brother or a sister, you know.
Okay.
But all of them includes emotion because when you talk about your enemy, are you angry? Because if you're angry, the question becomes, are you angry because you love them? So a lot of times what we do, we have a tendency to do is say, well, I don't like them. When in actuality, you're saying I hate them. In your heart, you don't mean it. You mean it, but you cover that up with I don't like them. But then when you begin to look at how you treat um, 309, would you mute your phone, please? Would everyone check your phones and make sure they're muted? Um, well,
Sounds like static.
it is. Okay. Um,
But-
so
Quick
that's okay.
question. I hear what you're saying, but that doesn't mean that we have to condone their behavior,
No, it doesn't. It
does it?
doesn't at all.
I mean, look at Jesus and the Pharisees.
Look at us and our children. We love them, but we don't condone some of their behavior.
So what's our emotion supposed to be when we don't condone their behavior?
Your emotion can be anger based on love, but I'm talking about your enemy as opposed to your family. Like I said, the expression is different for your children, for your spouse, than it would be for someone you deem to be an enemy. Does that make sense, Patrick?
Yeah,
Huh?
I'm not talking about family and friends. I'm talking about like Trump.
Oh, okay. You love Trump because Trump is a human. Well, it's flesh and blood anyway.
Yeah.
You dislike the actions that he takes, but you can't dismiss him from being a human. What you gonna make him? He's worse than an animal, so you can't insult the animals. So what are you gonna call him? He is a misguided human who needs to be civilized. Come on, Audrey, talk to me. Does that make sense? You got to unmute first. There you go.
It
We
does.
all,
Go
yeah.
ahead, Rob.
Well, I think we all got to chew on it for a while. I hear it, I understand it, but I don't see it. I don't feel it yet. Oh, I understand what you're saying. Oh,
Ron, may I interject something, please?
please do, because I'm stuck.
Please, Kathy.
Good morning, family. Good morning, family. After I made that comment yesterday and we hung up, the part that kept resonating with me that I kept going back to is let your love be greater than your fear. So I started to really think on what will fear cause me to do? And out of my fear, and for me, it was a great deal of anxiety. I was hyperventilating. I was upset because all of the stuff started happening, and we were just on day number 4 of this presidency. And I'm thinking, oh my God, how are we going to go through 4 years of this? And as I reflected on that last night, fear changes if I let my fear rule me. Fear changes how I respond to everything and everyone around me. So we do have to look at first emotions, in my opinion. And this is me thinking this through after having thought about this a lot yesterday. When I look at my emotions and I begin to realize the first thing of love has to be love for myself. And what I mean by love for myself, I have to love myself enough to understand that these attacks, though they are meant to be personal, I cannot allow them to shake me because I love me enough to know who I am. As a result of standing in a place of love, now I understand that as love, not just giving love, but being love, puts me in a position now that when all of these entanglements, because if we step back and look at all of the bills that were signed and all of the things that Trump is doing, and the majority of it is targeted at the African, let's be real, would love to take us back to slavery and all of those things. Those are entanglements. So the thing that I had to ask myself, if I love myself and we've spent so much time learning who we are And no one is going to take that away from us. No bill can sign that away. No laws are going to change who we know that we are. Now that I see all of these, I'm going to call them what they are, entanglements coming for me, I love myself enough to, I don't know the word I want to use right here, but to stay above it, to rise above it in the sense of my mentality. You're not going to change how I think about myself. You're not going to change how I think about humanity, and I'm going to stay the course. I go to my ancestors and ask for guidance on how to stay balanced. And now that doesn't mean that I am not going to, if it's something I need to vote on, if there are actions in the physical realm that I'm to take to negate anything that he has put into motion, that's one thing. But if the weapons of my warfare are not carnal, but they are mighty through God for the pulling down of strongholds, if I am the God that have the mighty weapons that can tear these strongholds down, the love that I have is loving you enough that even when you don't know you're hurting yourself, like all of the people who voted for him who are now getting dogged out, who are wondering, well, oh no, now what do? We voted for him. You continue to have love even for them. You don't look at it and say, oh, well, you made your bed, you lie in it. That is not who we are. Will there be casualties of war? There has to be. If we are saying that a country has to be torn down, for a nation to be a spiritual nation to be resurrected, of course there are going to be casualties of war, but we don't have to be those casualties of war. Will we be impacted by some of the things he will do? Absolutely. We're going to see the food prices go up, gas will go up, things may go up, all of those things, but go to your history. We've been there before. When all these things were happening, we were still able to buy our food, to get our medicines, to do. So look at the history that you have with the Creator and knowing who we are. So this love is about an emotional place of balance on the inside of you that causes you to say, regardless of what you try to do to me, oh, I will call you out when I see it. I will point out like all the things like right now with the impact, the uptick of the bird flu and the Center for Disease and Control being shut down, so that now none of the stuff is coming out to us. Our role for humanity is to be vigilant. We learn these things. We put these things in the macro. Take care of yourself. It may be time for you to start wearing your mask again. If you have any symptoms of flu, when you go to the doctor, make certain you check that it's bird flu too, because the those things are entirely different, two different things. So I see it, and correct me if I'm wrong, and please chime in and let me know your thoughts on what I'm saying. It starts with the love of myself enough to know who I am to remain balanced. That's the only thing that's going to keep me from being an emotional wreck when all these things are hitting us, because he is coming full force to hit us so hard and so fast that we don't even have time to think, well, what is he going to do next or what's coming next? It's just like an onslaught of, I'm going to keep hitting you until I break you. We can't be broken. I keep reminding myself of that. So in letting my love be greater than my fear, love is going to keep me balanced, because that's who I am, and that's what's brought us from generation to generation to where we are today. Now, when I look at all of humanity, like I said, we won't protect and save everyone from the things they have set into motion, because things can't remain the same if we have asked for change. Something has to be destroyed for something to be resurrected in a spiritual way, and this destruction will come, but we have to not get into our feelings and go, oh, Lord, that happened to them, and I'm mad at him today. We keep saying he's where we need him to be. Father said that, and I agree. He's going to do what needs to be done to tear down what we said we want to have torn down, so that something that we are birthing this, guys. And we can't afford to get caught up on, and I am very select. I don't watch just the news. I don't watch the news anymore at all, because he's got most of them singing his praises. I go to MSNBC, I listen to Rachel Maddow, I listen to Joy Reid, I listen to the people that's going to tell me what he's doing. And I can look at that and say, okay, now let me make certain that we do what we need to do to protect humanity and get those who are seeking truth to see this and understand it so that they can survive what's going on. And they too, their eye will be open so that they will know who they are. So I think it's a lot of moving parts to this thing that we call love. But in my opinion, it starts first with me loving myself enough to rise above the fray. And I think we used to call it being above the circumstances, is the word I was looking for earlier. And when you learn to be above that circumstance, that's not going to say that you're not going to feel it. But I heard Nick say yesterday that his fear was fleeting. I did pick up on that. My anxiety, I had to call Pastor. It didn't leave me for a while. And I was like, do you know what he's trying to do to the veterans and then all of these? Because I heard it all that first time, and it was 4 or 5 things that he had done in one day that unsettled me. But after talking to Pastor about it and saying, can we talk about it with the family? And I know I'm not the only one, I'm just saying what I asked for. I was glad that we were able to put context to it on yesterday. So when we're thinking about it, it doesn't mean that you are an emotionless zombie with no feelings. You're going to feel it. But you don't stay in your feelings because you roll up your sleeves and say, we see you. Now what do I need to be doing? And I have been calling on the ancestors for guidance more than I ever have in these past 7 or 8 days that we're into right now, evoking the wisdom and the wherewithal to just know that I am limitless and I will not allow myself to be boxed in by my emotions and all of these different feelings, and that I am going to flow through this universe as the spirit that I am and deal with things from not the standpoint of just the carnal mind of Kathy, but from the standpoint of the I, the spiritual me, that I see this and we need to see this. Now what do I do? And it's not about just so much of self-preservation for me. It's preserving humanity, who all of mankind who is seeking truth and who wants to understand who they are. And there will be some who will never seek truth and never want to change, and they will be a casualty of war. And so I know I said a lot, so give me some feedback, please.
Hello.
That's what I was saying. That's what
I'm sorry.
I hear 2 people talking.
Are you going Pastor? Yeah.
Go ahead. Yes.
Hey, good morning. I just want to say, I think just adding to what Kathy brought up, I always think that we are fine from a mental standpoint when we take a step back and remind ourselves, who we are and how we feel. I think the challenge that we face is not our challenge, but it's like there's a couple of things. One, we understand that we're going to be fine. We're going to be all right. We'll endure it. But it's the thought of it's not what we ask for, but it's what we understand that, it's going to take place and it has to be torn down. But it's the point of who is suffering, who won't suffer. And I think that's the urge to say, well, the people that wanted it and voted, hopefully they, have the brunt of the suffering. If that's a term or mentality. So I think it's one, it's not really us. It's the, we say you can't save someone until they want to be saved. In how that suffering will look, I think that's the anxiety that's built around that. The amount of work that's lay in front of us that we're going to have to deal with, and I think ultimately it's going to be the people that will suffer and come to realization. Like I said, we all will bear some of the burden, but that's where we have to be our strongest, is to fight that urge to wanting to see suffering, and we just really have to be the balance during the suffering, whether it's us, people that voted for him, to ultimately get to a place of where we can begin to kind of unify and rebuild. I think just on the outside looking at that, getting yourself geared up mentally to just deal with it and stay balanced during the times of the ups and the downs. That's it.
Yes, this is Barbara. Good morning, everyone. I agree with you and Kathy, but I'd also like to remind us that there may be some of us who suffer as well. Just because the rain falls on the just as well as the unjust. The rain is good, but
Right.
That's even more important why we must stay where Kathy's talking about, in that place of balance, so that whatever comes, even though it affects us to some extent, we have to know that any material effects are nothing. The weapons of our warfare are not those material kinds of things. Weapons of our warfare are staying the course, staying in love, and staying balanced, regardless of whether it affects other people and or affects us and those who are close to us. Thanks.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I definitely agree with that too. And I think, like I said, speaking personally for me myself, the biggest challenge is just you stand by and you see the amount of hate and it's almost like it feels like it's taking a victory lap in a sense that, and you see that and you're wondering what they don't see and what they do see to foster so much hate and even to their own detriment. So that's the challenge, at least for me, some days it's just to kind of move past that and let it not affect my mood.
Thank you. And may I say one more thing before you do run?
Of course.
Because F just sparked something else. I agree with you. What we're doing all along with it, having done all the standing, we have to make sure we aren't taking that victory lap because we see what's happening to other people because they're us and they just don't know. They just are ignorant to their spiritual being, and so we have to make sure we don't take that victory lap because we see them suffering. We have to be grateful and thankful and hopeful that, as Kathy said, in that suffering they see themselves. They see who they really are.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good morning. This is Cheryl.
Hey, Cheryl.
And when I was a child, my introduction to religion, actually to spirituality, was through my mother. And she told me two things that I never forgot. One is you can have heaven here on earth. You don't have to wait. The other is you don't hate people. You can not like their actions. But today I find myself having love for my people, but having a strong animosity about what's going on now, even though at the end of the day, I know that it's supposed to happen, that it's going to happen, but it does not stop me from being angry and feeling protective of my people. I'm so worried that our people are running over the precipice. They are overwhelmed by what's going on. Why are you overwhelmed? He told us what he was going to do. I believed him in 2025. I've read half of it, haven't read it all, but I believe him. So the things that he's doing now are not unanticipated. I fully expected it. So we know what's coming. We know what we see. We can anticipate what's to come. But we know ultimately who is in charge and who is really in control of everything. And so in that, I find joy, not happiness, because happiness is what's done to you. Joy is what we get from worshiping the one. And so I have to admit, I'm torn because I'm not happy when I hear about immigration and the children being pulled out of schools. It tears at my heart because they're children. And I don't care what color they are, they're our children. That hurts me deeply. But it does not keep me from being angry at all of those ignorant people who put us in this position. I'm sorry, I'm still angry about that. And I know eventually I will get it together. But right now, yes, I'm angry about it because this has been coming a long time. And I know it's been coming a long time. There are things that every administration could have done and should have done to prevent this day. But that's not who this country is. You know, we have fought for years based on what we wanted this country to be, what it represented to us, what it could be, what it could become. It's not going to get there on its own, and I know that. So we need this to happen. But it just hurts me so to see our people struggle and to see them in pain and to know what's coming. And, you know, all I can do is just keep praying and try to keep sending that positive energy and light and love, and, you know, just pray that eventually it will get through and help them through this time, because it's not going to get better, it's going to get worse. And we know this. So that's, you know, that's where I am. I know the importance of forgiveness. But right now, I tell you, I'm just very honestly, I'm angry. And at the same time, you know, I love our people. I love all of our people. But I'm just angry that we have to go through this again. You know, I'll say this and then I'm done. The things that we lived through, 1965, 1975, we did that because we did not want to have our children live through the things that we did. We did not want them to have to live through lynchings and rapes and mobs and our cities being buried underwater. We didn't want that. You know, we didn't want our people being lynched because they were people of wealth, because they had money, because they were intelligent. And yet it happens every day. And all he has done is to make it evident to the world that this is who they are. So I'm done.
Cheryl, this is Barbara. Your mother is a very wise woman. She could have transitioned already, but I always try to
Barbara,
speak
we can barely hear you.
under the present.
Barbara, we can
I
barely hear
always
you.
try to speak in the present about spiritual beings because they aren't dead, even if they're transitioned. So your mother's very wise when she says, focus on what's done, not on the individual. So I would just concur with you that, yeah, there's anger everywhere, but the anger has to be focused on what's done, because we've got to remember that just like we have our children and our physical children, these people acting like this are spiritual children. They don't know. They don't know who they are. They are children without morality, children without an idea of who they are. And so I just wanted to just concur with your mother, the wisdom that she's imparted to you. So the anger, I think, is a justified kind of anger. but it's an anger at what is being done to other human beings by immature spiritual children.
And Barbara, may I add one thought to what you just said? Because I agree with everything that you and Cheryl both said. Based on what you just said, to me, that's why it is so important to recognize just because a person determines that they are your enemy, you don't have to determine that they're your enemy. They can feel a certain way toward you. And that's why in the example that you gave, if you see them as renegade children, you don't hate the child. It's easier to not hate the child if you see them for what they are, renegade children, and then you decide that and determine, and I think we taught a lesson many years ago, that an enemy is only your enemy when you decide that that is your enemy. Just because you may not like me does not make you my enemy, because I determine whether or not you're my enemy. And that's how I'm reminding myself of these things. I know they hate us, but I'm not going to let hate rule me, because I'm not fighting my enemy, because you're not my enemy. I'm not going to see you as my enemy. Does that make any sense?
It does.
It does. I want, one of the things that, it does make sense, Kathy, all of what was said makes sense, but we cannot allow our anger to morph into hate. It's very easy to do that. When we talk about anxiety, think about what anxiety means. Anxiety is uneasiness or discomfort based on fear. Anxiety is a product of fear. And so when you say that, when Nick said that his fear was fleeting, anxiety must be the same way. And if it's not, we need to talk to each other to make sure that we pull ourselves back, because we are indeed each other's keeper. And sometimes you can't do that on your own without help. This whole idea of what's taking place, let's be honest about it. We are right where we were in 1955 when Emmett Till was lynched. That's where we are not on our way there. We are there. When you do an executive order that says the training tapes that was being used by the Tuskegee pilots that the Air Force was using for their tactics has to be dispensed with. They have to be removed from the training of the Air Force. When the tactics of the Tuskegee pilots were the best tactics that were used in the whole war. But it's being removed simply because they are Africans. When you get that damn, I'm that doggone petty, what are you saying? Anything that pertains to people who don't look like me, we're going to get rid of it. And that is another way of saying we're going to do everything we can to erase the importance of folk who don't look like me. That's what's being said. I mean, if you want to see a DEI hire, look at Hargess, whatever his name is, the Secretary of Defense dude.
Expert.
Yeah, thank you. That's a DEI hire. However, DEI has become the buzzword for nigger. It's not just a black skin. No, it's become the buzzword for NIGGER. And let's stop playing with ourselves in terms of the meaning of these words. We call them dog whistles simply because they call them dog whistles. They are racist tropes, period. And there's no way of getting around that. And the ones that are used are no different than the word nigger. They're no different. They are the ones who introduced that word to describe us. every word that they've used to describe us, they have turned it into a negative. Negative is the word for black. More is the word for black. Give me the word for black. They have turned it negative into a negative thing. We have to remain vigilant as to who we are, as it has been spoken, but we also have to understand that the people who are going through these things are going through them because of us. Trump's election was based upon our desires, and our desires were to bring balance. And though we did not realize that we were going we were going to have executive orders presented in rapid fire, that was done to overwhelm people. And even though we knew it was coming, that does not erase the reality of having anxiety about it, simply because you know it was coming. It's no different than knowing that someone close to you is at the point of death, and you know it's there, and you're saying to yourself, I don't want them to suffer. But the moment they die, it hurts more than it did prior to. So all I'm trying to say, I suppose, is that the thing that we knew was coming, we did not have the emotion towards it until we had to face it. And now we are in a constant state of facing the realities of racism. We have not faced the realities of racism since the early 60s. When you really think about it, we talked about it, but we have not faced the realities of it. Because the people like Biden hid it beneath the surface. So we didn't. When you talk about the things to come, there is nothing to come. Everything is already here. The ban that Biden issued on these 2,000-pound bombs for Israel, Trump is sending them to Israel now, as we speak. So when we think about these things, it is incumbent upon us to keep up with what's happening, because if we don't, then it's going to be more difficult to abate the fears of the people who we are to guide through this minefield of hatred. It's incumbent upon us to do that. And we can't do it if we don't know what we're dealing with. Does that make sense?
Pastor, I'd just like to just say something a little differently from what you said. You said that we're right back where we are when Emmett Till was killed. Well, it may feel that way, but the difference is us right now. So the illusion is that we are right back where we were because we have the same feelings, same things that happen. But the truth is, we are the ones who make the difference, and that things will not turn out. They will not be what they were before. And so that's the thing that we've got to hold on to, that we make the difference now. Thanks.
Thank you. One of the biggest things I think we have missed is the reason for all of this. The reason for all of this has more to do with money than it does with anything else.
Yes, it does. It's the God of this world.
If you can, you're right. If you can stop, or let me back up. The most educated people in this country are African women. The best entrepreneurs in this country are African women. people who look like us have begun to pool monies in order to lift up the community. If you can get rid of affirmative action and diminish the number of Africans who are being going to college, be educated, or going to different skills, receiving different skills, so that they can increase their income. If you get rid of affirmative action, you end those opportunities. If you get rid of diversity, you end those opportunities. Everything is geared toward keeping African people out of the economic system, to keep African people at a place where you have to watch every penny, make just enough money to survive, but not enough to thrive. And if we think that is not about that, let us do an inventory of everything that has been done to gut the Civil Rights Bill, the voter registration bill, the voting bill, affirmative action. All these things have been cut because of money. Every time the Africans in this country have ever sought to set up a community where we were able to take care of ourselves, the one thing that they always did was burn it down. It's about keeping you poor. And keeping you poor keeps you in bondage to survival, as opposed to having to spend money to keep you in bondage. They keep you in bondage by forcing you to focus only on survival. And yes, Barbara, we are the difference because there has never been anyone or any group in this country, or as far as I know, in this world, who were able to do what we are doing. They had the capabilities, but they didn't do it. And I'm not going to say I'm not going to say that they didn't want to. I'm saying that they didn't know to. But I do believe that out of all of the people, the one person who possibly saw the mistake was Martin Luther King just before he was assassinated. Just before he was assassinated, when he said, I'm paraphrasing, I'm afraid that I have integrated my people into a burning house. That tells me that he saw something. And that burning house is reflective in all of the things that have been taken away. Now, we look at what Trump is doing rather. But we don't look at what Biden did as closely as we look at what Trump did. He was a part of this as well, by virtue of not pushing back on the things that the Republican Congress was doing and carrying before the Supreme Court. All of these things, I think it was Audrey yesterday who said, why is it that our civil rights, that my words, not hers, are predicated on executive decision, executive order, as opposed to being codified? The reason is because we have never been considered as citizens in this country. And non-citizens, you can treat them any way you choose to. So I am saying that we have not begun to work. The foundation for how we are to work has been laid by virtue of us understanding who we are. We have just begun to work to bring a change or to manifest a change in this earth. And I'll speak more about that later, but I'm done for now. Thank you. By the way, I agree with everything that has been said thus far.
I I have had a reoccurring dream ever since I can remember. Uh, since I was a teenager anyway, late teenager. And in that dream, I built a house. I poured the foundation. I put up every brick. I did the wiring. I did everything. It was my house designed the way I wanted it to be. But in the house, there were two rooms that I avoided. One room was where my anxieties were, my fears, the things I hated, and even the things I saw in other people that weren't mine. I put in that room so I didn't deal with them. And when I had to deal with them, I went to the other room, the room where I knew better, that there was love and compassion in. And the thing that used to wake me up and bring me back sometimes is there were times I never felt there was enough love and compassion in the room to take care of the things that I feared or the things that bothered me. And no matter how much I searched, I didn't have enough to bring balance to the bad things. And it would wake me up. And when I was awake, I just avoided it. I didn't think about it. And I think about that now because I kind of feel that's where we are now. At least I feel like I am. Do not think for a moment that you don't have enough love and compassion, enough goodness, enough soul in you to take care of whatever's in that bad room, that we may fear, the thing that we may looks like going to eat us, it's going to overwhelm us. I just feel like that's just kind of reminded me of that. That's what I see. That do not for a minute, Ron, think that you are not enough. That there is not enough in you. That anything in that bad room, there's nothing in there that can overtake you. So I just a kind of elementary way, I guess I've always kind of dealt with things and how things kind of fit to me to make sense. Anyone else, questions or comments?
What do you think the spiritual ramifications are with what we're dealing with in terms of well, let me say what I'm asking. Do you believe that our ancestors, our Creator, have established this administration for the purpose of bringing back to the mind of everyone the way things were before there was ever ever a thought about pretending to include enslaved people into the system. Do you think the Creator has done this? That's not rhetorical.
Repeat that again, Rep, because I didn't understand what you were saying.
Do you think that the Creator has put the Trump administration in office for the express purpose of showing us how things were prior to this country pretending to make us citizens? In other words, do you believe that this administration is in office to show us that we are still slaves?
I believe it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I don't believe it.
Tell me why.
Who you asking, Rev? The people that agree?
No, I'm asking one.
What you say?
You. I'm asking you why you don't believe it.
Well, one reason why I just don't believe in it is to say that the Creator wanted to do this, show us where we are. I think the Creator allowed it to take place, and allowing something to take place means you didn't really have a part in it. You just let it manifest. But to let it be, or to say that the Creator is involved with it, that's the part that I don't agree with.
So what part do you agree with?
I agree with the aspect of it took place. Just
Okay.
like when we go to our vehicle and it cranks up, it just took place.
So the Creator did not want it to take place. It just took place haphazardly.
Now, I'm not saying it didn't take place haphazardly, Reverend Richard. People voted. Things took place. Me personally, Reverend Richard.
No. I didn't ask about a vote. I asked about the spiritual aspects of it. I didn't ask about the material place of voting and that kind of thing. I'm talking about the spiritual influence.
And I still stand on my answer, Reverend Richard. My answer is still no.
Okay.
And for the other people, and for the people that do feel differently than me, if they can explain to me from a spiritual aspect, why did the Creator not let it happen? Was he involved, or was there any part of the Creator being involved with this taking place? Thank you.
I'll see if anyone wants to address that before I do.
Yeah, Rev, this is Roy. You said, make sure I hear you correctly, that, the Creator, I don't know if you did use the word made this happen, because I look at it from a standpoint of we have choices. So because God is sovereign, he allows this to happen.
Amen.
So because he is sovereign, even though the choices were made to allow this to happen, that's where he really shows his sovereignty. So it comes back to us making a choice of not necessarily being discouraged by what we see and what we hear with our eyes, but to truly understand and know who is the sovereign God that we serve. So then we actually look at this with a level of anticipation and excitement because of such. We learn from past experience. So even though this specific event is new, it's not new. So we lean back on the experiences of the past to allow us to forge forward with anticipation and excitement of what's to come from this. That's my point.
Thank you, Roy.
Hey, thank you, Roy. Appreciate you, boss.
So the Creator had nothing to do with this administration. We are the ones who had something to do with it by virtue of a vote.
This is Vermel. I'm going to attempt to give my thoughts on that. I say yes. We as a group, through instructions and teaching, put our desires out there for balance and harmony, and things were revealed along the way to show us who we are and what this world or nation could be. I can see where we think the people who voted him in had a yes or no. That's very true. But I also believe, due to our desires, we could not see before it happened. We don't shape it. But we brought about this event. And I do think that has to do with Ein Sof hearing our desires. So I don't think it's just the vote thing. Those are my thoughts.
I was trying to think of some scripture to support what I'm thinking here. If you go back and look at Egypt from the very beginning, and you know, very beginning time when Abraham goes into Egypt, he's searching for himself, he's searching for God. And that sincere desire starts events to take place. And he didn't ask for the wars. He didn't ask for the thing that happened to Lot. He didn't ask for a lot of the things that happened. He didn't ask for the nation to go into slavery. But the sincere desire started the path of things to happen. And everybody that returned to Egypt after that represented going back to the beginning and seeing things as they were or are and looking at it spiritually. And I think this is no different. The cramped space that we're looking at now is, as some has said, the fear, the anxiety, the feeling of being overwhelmed. It is not so much the event itself as far as looking at the election. The election is just a pawn in what is taking place. So was the pandemic. So was Biden being elected. So was Kamala Harris showing what hope looks like. All of that was part of the events that take place in order that truth can be revealed and shown to us. So I agree with what has been said when Pastor made reference to Emmett Till. I had not thought about that, but that fear and anxiety is met differently now because it's met, as Barb said, with some spiritual resistance, some spiritual understanding and awareness of how to see yourself and how to see this as a spiritual battle and not something that is political or physical for that matter. So I see a lot, everything that is in motion as being a spiritual journey and not just a haphazard thing that happened just because.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Well, Reb, if the creator had his hand in aiding Trump getting in office, which I don't believe in, if that was the case, then that means he was against Kamala Harris. What was it about Kamala Harris that she wasn't supposed to be in office at this particular time? Why did the creator show favor? And this is not just a question to you, Reverend Richard. If for those that believe that,
But I want that
why
question.
did what's that again, Rev?
I want that question. I like that question.
Oh, okay, but I just desire answer from other people more so than you at this time. So
Okay. But I'm
if
them.
that was the okay, though, then what was wrong with Kamala Harris then? Because
Sure.
before this question, before the question, we talked good about Kamala Harris.
And still do.
So that's my question. Thank y'all.
Okay. Anybody else want to respond to that before I do?
I can. I don't think the creator, this sounds more callous than I mean it. I don't think the creator cares about Kamala Harris or Donald Trump in the way that we think of. It is the underlying sort of spiritual necessity that needs to be addressed. And just like we talked about, the universe pushing you out of the nest if you are unable to develop the momentum or the will to do it yourself. If you couldn't get out of the nest with Kamala Harris, you will get out of the nest with Donald Trump. In either case, the underlying spiritual force that is operating is one that is pushing us in the direction of the need to consciously recognize, sort of on a social, political level, the need to correct our behavior collectively and the underlying reasons that our behavior is out of line in the first place. Now, Donald Trump is representative of that, and the sort of mindset, and everyone behind him is that which is out of line with everything. And it must be pulled up by the root. So if it could not have been done with Kamala Harris, it is preferable to the creator, in my belief, to have someone like Donald Trump. That is not to say that we do not also have a measure of free will. We do vote, but we vote within, maybe a better way to describe it is we swim within a current. And if we do not know how to overpower the current or change the current, then we will be swept up within it, even though we can still move around a little bit. And the current is pushing us in the direction of the need to uproot this entirely. I wanted Kamala Harris. We needed Donald Trump. And that's how I believe it works.
I think it could be said better than it. We wanted Kamala Harris, but we needed Donald Trump. And I know the reason we needed Donald Trump. And I'll address that if there's no, if there is anyone else to address that right now, please.
Hello, everyone. This is Sheldon.
Go ahead,
going
Sheldon.
back to the necessity for this to actually happen. Nick mentioned free will, and in terms of how all of this works in terms of involvement with the creator. it is never that we're actually made to do anything. And as Nick was saying, there's a necessity for underlying thing to be addressed and corrected. How the universe works, it doesn't make you do that thing. It simply, in a sense, allows for that impetus, that particular thing to happen, or that is not concerned with that one particular thing, but it is, in a sense, of motivation to push you in order to grow and develop in a certain area. When you think about in terms of how even lifetime plural work, it is that, in a sense, you come with an assignment or certain conditions that actually set up to actually learn and grow from a particular thing with certain obstacles or certain almost like levels of things like that that is, in a sense, signed up for you to go through. It is not that particular thing supposed to be a punishment. It is supposed to be, in a sense, training. When someone goes and they play a sport and they have obstacles and they have drills and things like that, that is something to be to be achieved in a sense, to overcome in a sense, to master in a sense. That is the whole point of it. So when we think about what, in terms of wanting Kamala, but needing Trump, it wasn't so much that, yes, we understood and wanted Kamala, but this idea of Trump forces all of these other people to face things that they need in order to grow and develop, and to deal, and to also discard. Trump actually forces that. There's a lot of people looking in the mirror right now. There's a lot of people who are asking themselves, where do I stand on this issue? Oh, I thought I stand on this issue. This is not right. In a sense, they're having to face and go through that right now. And of course, that's what this entire time coming up is going to be about. Like Nick said, the creator doesn't care about something of this nature, looking at it from just a small standpoint. The creator is concerned about the nature of our hearts and the nature of our growth, etc.
Thank you, Sheldon. Audrey?
Oh, sorry, Andre, I didn't even realize that you had said go ahead, Sheldon, so I guess I had cut you off and I didn't realize it.
No. I was just thinking about something we said yesterday about going back to the beginning, and you mentioned, going back to a time of Emmett Till and that sort of thing, and even back to making us realize that we are still enslaved. But all of that sounds like going back to beginning to me. And with Trump just discarding everything, that's like a going back to a beginning too. And I just think about if he's doing away with all these things, just think about the clean slate the next administration is going to have. So it is actually like going back to a beginning. And I agree with Sheldon, it's going to make a lot of people look in the mirror and say, wait, who am I, or what's going on here? But I think taking us back to the beginning is going to make us realize who and what we can be. Anyway, I'm done.
Thank you.
Okay, if you don't mind, I just wanted to interject two things. One, when it comes to free will, when Samuel went to the people, he went to the Israelites, they told him, we want a king. And when he went to speak to the Lord, he said, listen, I've talked to the people, and they don't want a judge, they want a king. And the Lord said, give him a king. The people in this country decided they wanted a king. And this is what you get. You get bad judgment. You get unspiritual thinking. A man who stands up and holds the Bible upside down and talks about and says that he never did anything that he needed to apologize or atone for. That's what they wanted. That's what they got. But again, it's free will. And so, you know, you got to look at that. The other thing is, most people did not understand that DEI, white women benefited more than anybody else. White women never really understood that they moved on the same level as civil rights. When we got rights, they got rights. But when they were attacking DEI, you couldn't hear a mumbling word. Watch what happens when you start looking around and all of these white women in these high positions start looking for work. Because they don't even know. They should know they're next. They're coming for them. They didn't want them. They didn't want us. And the fact that they were qualified did not matter. They were only hired. Yes, they had to be qualified. They had to be twice as qualified, but they were women, and they never would have gotten those positions if it had not been for the civil rights movement. So, and most of the people we know who receive welfare are white. But every time you see people receiving benefits, it's a little blackface. So a lot of people are going to wake up and feel what we've been feeling all these years. And I do not rejoice in that. I think that's sad, that's unfortunate. We tried to save them and we could not. I'm
They
done.
didn't want to be saved. The important thing in that is this year. And George, I got you. Women and Africans were considered property. That's why they're in the same boat in terms of the mentality of a European. George?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. A lot, has been said, and I just want to, mention some words that I heard in my spirit. And, Cheryl, you mentioned light, love, and I want to say also adding to that truth. Ron ushered us into this spiritual enlightenment session talking about the importance of love, but you also, Ron, mentioned intimacy. I think that there's an intimacy that we are experiencing through our vibrations that's helping us to understand fear. And, there's the acronym that says, fear, where we could talk about face everything and run. But I think the fear that we're speaking about is the importance of us facing everything and rising above, what has been taught or shared through racism, politics, and religion, and looking at the importance of our time together right now, that we can appreciate the energy that is being shared to have us to overcome these so-called entanglements. When I think about the truth, in the 42 affirmations, it talked about, I will not turn away from fear. I'm sorry, I will not turn away from truth. And so this truth is now, manifesting because of our desires to, as we talked about, not what Kamala Harris did not do. It's what she was called to do, to bring to our awareness, the importance of us being able to realize that our ancestors gave us virtues to live by. And the three most important virtues that was stated was our thoughts. What is our thoughts? What is our words that we're speaking? What is our actions that we are putting out there in the macro that people can see the light, the love, and the truth in us, and being able to stand on those principles, that we're able to see the manifestations of our heart's desires. And sure, it's a struggle, but in struggle, we know that it's not about hope. It's about us knowing the woman that we are, which is the part of that African proverb, woman, know thyself. So I just wanted to share those thoughts because, again, Ron, talking about these particular 3 points of emphasis of love, intimacy, and fear, I think our intimacy is so strong, at this particular time because of our desires to not only bring healing to our land, but to be able to know the truth of what we are facing. So I just wanted to share those thoughts, but I appreciate the conversations, the energy, and all that have been said at this time. I'm done. Any questions?
Thank you, George.
May I add one quick thought to what George said?
Of course.
That intimacy is based on the history that you have with the Creator. When you know that you know that you know, that's where knowing comes from. When I faced this before, I faced something similar, and maybe this is new uncharted territory for us, but we know that our forefathers and our ancestors went through all of this. Let me say our ancestors, not forefathers, went through all of these things. And as a race of people and as the African, we're still here, sustainable. We are a sustainable people. And so that intimacy is what's developed over time as a result of relationship. And I just wanted to and the history that you have with the Creator. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Anyone else? I want to address the why. Why would the Creator do this, or why would the Creator allow this? This is not something that was done without spiritual influence at all. If it did not have spiritual influence, then the Creator would not be sovereign. The why is because the African had to see that the civilizing of Europeans was not finished. Civilizing the mindset was not complete. And the person that was chosen to stand in that space to exemplify that is Donald Trump. We've been voting for legislation, for people who would pass legislation that would change things. We've been looking for someone to bring us hope. And that's what happened with Kamala Harris. But that hope could not, the results of our hope and desires with her could not be manifested by her, because she would have to do it through the same barbaric government that Donald Trump represents right now. It is incumbent upon us to deal with truth, whether it's pretty or not. And to say that the European mindset is still uncivilized, is still barbaric, is an understatement. Especially when you look at whether it's a Republican or Democrat, the same thing happens to humanity. None of us can point to what changed under any administration that we have ever lived. We can talk about what happened with individuals, but that was planned also. However, when we talk about that, this country has been at war for over 200 years. That in itself speaks to the barbaric nature of the mindset that leads this country. Right now, what we are doing when we talk about balance, what we're actually talking about is completing the mission of bringing civilization to a barbaric mindset. Whether it be Bush shocking oil in Iraq, or whether it be Obama and the death of the murder actually of Gaddafi, whether it be Joe Biden with the 2,000-pound bombs and all the other armament that he sent to Israel. It speaks to being barbaric. There is no different than having beating people to death with a club until you can bring greater perfection to the weaponry that would kill more people, a greater number of people in a short period of time. And that is the one thing that the European mindset has brought to the globe. A most efficient way to kill people and take what you want. We can talk about reading, writing, speech, all of that. Okay, it doesn't matter. What the difference between being a barbarian and being civilized is how you treat humanity. And the way humanity has been and is currently being treated reeks of being barbaric. The puns of Nazism that Elon Musk put on X. And no one spoke against them. No one distanced themselves from that. Also speaks to the same thing with him supporting the Nazi party really in Germany. Nobody speaks against, no one says that in that administration says anything about that in a way that will cause him to understand that they are not supporting it. So when I talk about this election, when I talk about the purpose of it, when I talk about the origin of it, I am talking about the spiritual influence with origin. I am talking about the completion, the picture of the lack of civilized thinking. I am talking about the need for us to bring civilization, to complete the task of civilization, rather. So when Nick says we wanted Kamala Harris, but we needed Donald Trump. We needed Donald Trump so we could see the depth of the barbaric mindset and with a greater clarity than it has been shown to us in our lifetime. I'm done. Roy, George, Ramel, you guys were the ones who spoke in terms of the influence of the spiritual. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Oh, certainly.
The rest of you, does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Got a quick question. So do we need to meet Donald Trump more this time than we did the first time?
Yes, ma'am. The first time was a training session. He did not know how government functioned. Plus, he had people around him who were very efficient when it came to hiding the barbaric nature of the leadership in this country. This time, he has the same type of people around him that Thomas Jefferson had around him, that Abraham Lincoln had around him. If you look at Project 2025, you can go through the project and you can see the same energy, the same sentiments that slavery was justified with, and the same actions that slavery was created with and kept intact in 2020, in that Project 2025. It is evident that everything that has been done is directed towards people of color. Look at everything that has been done in the federal government in terms of what's called the DEI, or is DEI rather. The largest employer of African people is the federal government. And the desire to destroy the post office, the postal service, whatever you want to call it, is because the postal service, the employees in the postal service are 53% or more. So every department that has major support, or that employs rather a large number of people of color, is being attacked. The Civil Rights Department and the Justice Department has already been alleviated. So anything to defend or to speak in favor of the African is being eliminated. And the only job that the African gets is the black job, and that's to be the Secretary of Hood. That's it. Housing, that's it. That's the black job that black men and women get when an administration comes in. That's the primary job. I'm done.
Have you ever stopped and thought in your lifetime or in the course of a day, what dominates your thought? What dominates your thoughts in the course of a day? Can you imagine living for decades, for centuries, and your whole thought process being dominated by the African? You can't even decide on a homecoming queen without considering the African.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, I guess we looking at the way we the only way we look at it, but who's being enslaved here?
They are enslaved to their deep-seated fear. And not even of the African in terms of what the African is the physical manifestation of, but it is something within themselves that they are terrified of because they don't know how to interface with it. It's it's kind of like when you know you did something wrong and you avoid your, as a kid, and you avoid your parents all day, or whoever you eventually have to own up to.
Yeah.
You run from them for as long as possible.
Sound like you have experience.
And the problem with that is there's no upper There's no
Well,
upper limit on the well, perhaps there is, but metaphorically speaking, there's no upper limit on the distance you can run and the amount you can become afraid.
right.
And it just compounds the problem.
We talked about things that we expected to happen. We talked about those things. However, I want to point out something to us. There's going to be a lot of ugliness that we're going to have to deal with. Because the truth is not necessarily cute. The truth oftentimes is ugly and painful, but we have to deal with it. Because it's the truth. And we have determined, regardless of what what happens, we have to deal with the truth and without filtering. Because for so too long we have filtered the truth. And now, guess what? The chickens have come home to roost. We can't do that. And you will see exactly what I mean in a very short period of time. All right?
Questions or comments, anybody?
I know we've been talking about the ancestors and receiving from the ancestors, but on Monday, MLK Day, I was watching a few documentaries. One in particular was I Am MLK Jr. And some of the things that I saw that our ancestors endured just to vote, it hurt my heart, but at the same time, it made me appreciate them more, our ancestors more. And I was just seeing the film, the footage, and one lady said she lost her hearing when they turned the hose, the water hose, and she said it was so strong that it could tear the skin, rip your clothes. But she said she lost her hearing in one ear. And I thought, wow. But it just made me appreciate our ancestors more, for what they endured. Oh, I'm done. I just wanted to share. Thank you.
Oh, Jackie, thank you. Oh, boy. Good.
Yeah, if I may, Jackie, I appreciate, your words, and I'll just, share in terms of the concept of Ubuntu. I know I may have shared it before, but it talks about, I am because we are. And, that, particular saying, came out of the, well, let me just say, I am because we are. I really appreciate you saying that, Jackie. I'm done.
Thank you.
Is there anyone who witnessed that or have things like that back in the day?
And I'd just like to add, just being here with my dad, he's 89, and he talks about a lot of stuff. He's seen a lot, and then him being a long haul truck driver, he even shared with us, he was in New York, and he was still driving, and he got out, it was cold, ice, snow, and he said he put on his boots and his gloves, and he just got out, he backed in to the dock, and it was a older white gentleman, had holes in his overalls, his gloves were torn, he had holes in his shoes, said, Dad said he just got out to unlock the trailer or something. And he said, the older white gentleman said, dumb nigger, don't you know? Don't you see ice on the handle? Dad said he didn't say anything. He just got back in the truck. And then they called him inside after a while and said, the man called you a nigger, you didn't cut his throat? And Dad said, no, I didn't cut his throat. He said, because he had to unload the truck. He had holes in his shoes and his overalls. I'm just wondering who's the nigger. And so from that point on, they wanted him to carry that load to that particular location because he said he's heard it, for a long time, But he said, I guess you get to a point where it don't bother you. I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
You know what, Jackie? He got to a point where he did not allow it to bother him because he knew what the repercussions would be if he had said something back to him or in the same manner, or if he had taken the violent route that was suggested to him. It's difficult to understand why our people allow other people to talk to them that way until you have experienced it. My grandmama had two brothers who responded violently. One to a white man spitting on him, and the other one to a white man calling him a nigger. And he had to leave town. Both of them actually had to leave. And as a result of that, they never saw each other again because he could not come back to Union. Because they knew that when it comes to racism, when it comes to the murder of an African, they don't forget. There are so many things that I'm sure that all of us, most of us anyway, if not all, have experienced or have endured simply because we have never been seen as humans. We've always been seen as property and less than human. Those are the things that we've had to deal with. And those are the things that we are correcting now by virtue of coming to a true realization of who we are and our purpose for being here. Okay. Any questions or comments? I'm done.
All right, maybe this is a good place to take a pause then. Good discussion. Appreciate everybody, your comments, your energy. And we'll reconvene tomorrow evening. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank
Love
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
You as well.
Yeah, family.
Thank you.
Bye.